Hey guys, Huntsman here. So, I'm going to go over with you guys changing out the stock on an RAK9. Like I said at the end of my last video, if you watched it, I could not really find a whole lot on the RAK9, like changing the stock over and stuff like that. Pretty much, I think, where they're a typical AK, that's why there's not a whole lot on them. Or maybe they're not extremely popular, either or. I changed out, if you saw in the last video, and this weapon is stripped and cleared and stripped. If you saw in the last video, and that looks kind of weird. If you saw in the last video, you saw that I changed the stock over. It definitely needed some fitment. It was probably one of the worst times I've ever had changing stocks over. So, a little tip, if you're going to change the stock on an RAK9 over from, I think they're called sporting stocks, or they might have some special name, but basically, I'll share a picture of it here and you'll see it, but it comes back and then down and then comes across and comes up for your pistol grip. And it's a pretty neat concept, but I've always liked the traditional style AK look. So I swapped all the gear out for a Wasser 10 stock I got a really good deal on. I'll give you a heads up. When you do that, at the bottom of this receiver, you'll see this bolt coming up with a nut and a washer. Reason being is because for the other style stock, there's a giant screw that goes through the top and holds the grip to the receiver along with the top bolt here that holds it down. Once you remove that, there's a square about the size of a quarter through the bottom of this receiver. So when you get a Wasser stock and pistol grip, rather it's wood. And wood you could probably run that humongous screw through, but the plastic's all hollowed out through. So if you're going to put a plastic pistol grip on it like I did here, what you're going to have to do, the bolt that comes with this pistol grip is not long enough to put a nut on the other side here. So I went with a 5-inch bolt, threaded bolt all the way up through. It does hang out a little bit in the bottom, just a little bit. So just be careful about sitting it against your other guns in the cabinet or whatever it may be. You know, it does have a little bit of an edge there, but nothing I'm really worried about. This was a pain in the rear to put on, by the way. So I finally got this all the foregrip and the buttstock fitted and put on, and I was like, yes. And I went to put the pistol grip on, and that was a no-go. So I went to the gun shop. Sorry, I didn't go to the gun shop. I went to the hardware store, and I got a bolt. It wasn't long enough. So I went back, had to go back the next day and finally get the right bolt. And I finally got it on. What I did is I put on a locking nut, and then I blue Loctited it. And when you do that, you have to obviously use a big enough washer to cover the square hole and keep everything tight. And nothing locks in on this like AR-15s do. So it just sits flush against the receiver. So you got to make sure it's locked in pretty tight. The only locking spot is barely edged out right here for the trigger guard, and that's about it. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. You also want to make sure it's not so high that it's hitting this ramp. I mean, the bolt doesn't come far enough back. I'll actually show you guys with this in. The bolt doesn't come far enough back to ride on the. Actually, it wouldn't even hit that bolt head because this is in the way. Your bolt ramp, but you want to make sure it's not hitting because that'll set that up and nothing will sit right, and it's just a headache. So if you're gonna switch over to a Wasser 10 stock, just be prepared for fitting and other things you might run into. But this has been Huntsman 32. I finally got this looking like a traditional AK, and I'm super stoked about it. I shot it. It ran perfectly fine. I do have to adjust the front sight It's canted to the left and it's canted forward. I think what somebody did is they adjusted it and their caliper got stuck, so it spun the front sight forward. I have to order a front sight tool so I can readjust that. I tried knocking it back a little bit with like a dowel, but I didn't want to bend the front sight or break it. It's an AK, but still. So this has been Huntsman 32. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope maybe I gave you a few pointers. If you are going to change out the stock on an RAK9, I love it a lot more than the traditional stock or the original stock that came on the RAK9s. I'll try to post some more videos on this in the future and let you guys know how it's holding up. But other than that, it's been Huntsman 32. Have a great day, guys.